All right. Help a Teacher Facebook Live. This is our fancy, super fancy schmancy special edition. Typically, we are live on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central. But this is such an important show, and this is such an important guest that we have tonight. I had to make a special exception to bring her in on Tuesday night because she's so crazy busy changing lives and working with our clients. And so tonight our guest is Coach Elizabeth. And the first thing I hope she tells us when she comes on and joins us is how she pronounces her last name, because it is the most intimidating last name. And as a teacher, and she was a teacher too, by the way, so like when you're going down the roll on the first day of school and you hit that name, you go, "Oh, Elizabeth," because you're too scared of the last name. And so she's going to teach us how to pronounce her last name. And more importantly, not only was she an educator, she understands the lifestyle, and she understands the commitment, and she understands the emotion, and just the physical, the emotional, the intellectual effort that goes into the career. And she is an expert on health and nutrition and self-care, and helping us keep ourselves the priority right now, especially right now, more than ever. And here's why I had to have her on this week, is because right at the beginning of the year, kind of we have this resolution type fad. Everybody, we all get focused and we have new goals and we want to do all this great stuff. And people, go find a jazzercise class and they join Planet Fitness, and they're trying to figure out a new approach to nutrition. And then they get confused because they don't know, am I supposed to be paleo, am I supposed to be vegan, am I supposed to be keto, am I supposed to have a balanced plate, what am I supposed to do? And so what we're going to do is, a lot of times those resolutions work for about 6 or 7 days, and then people fall off and get confused and disappointed. And so Coach Elizabeth is here tonight, and she's going to help us make our way through all of that information. And listen, I've known her, I think we're going on maybe a couple of years now. Elizabeth, is that true? Has it been about 2 years?
I think it's been about 2.5, 3 years, something along those lines.
Oh my
Hi,
God.
everybody.
Thanks for joining us. All right. So the first thing is first. The most important thing, if we were going to do this thing the right way, we would say your whole name, and you have this wonderful, beautiful Greek last name. Tell us how to pronounce it.
Anastasopoulos.
That is so beautiful the way you said it.
Yeah,
And if I said it, we got to the Anna, and then it would have been
that was
downhill.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was teaching, I was Mrs. A. And if the kid got in trouble, then it was Mrs. Anastasopoulos, because I figured if they pronounced it right, they could butter me up.
Right. That's how it works. And then, so let me ask you this. So when you were teaching and prior to that, and you're in college and student teaching and getting into this teaching career, were you always somewhat focused on health and nutrition and exercise and that lifestyle, or did this come on later in life?
A little bit of both. I mean, I've always been pretty active. So even when I was a teenager, I played tennis. I was a cheerleader. I did all the geeky sports stuff. When I started college, did jazzercise, that type of thing. I was lifting a little bit, but I don't think it really became important until after I gave birth to my first child. And that's when I really became a lot more focused and cognizant of my overall health and wellness,
Sure.
because I got
And
big.
yeah. And so when you were doing the jazzercise, did you have the flash dance leg warmers? Please say yes.
I did.
Darn it. How about the tear it up, when you tear up some fringe on your sweatshirt, anything like that?
No, that I didn't
Ah.
have.
And, and so after your first child, there's some weight gain to keep a baby healthy and to feed a baby. And then when your child was born, there was some point you thought, wow,
Okay,
I,
so the story is this, and I know my husband hates. I think we told you this story how we were down there. I'm going to tell you again. So when I was pregnant with Lydia, I gained 55 pounds. Ladies, this is not healthy. Don't gain 55 pounds in pregnancy, okay? But I did, and then after I had Lydia, I was still about 175 to 180 pounds, and I'm only 5'5". I'm kind of a petite person, so I was a bit big. I kept this weight for a whole year. And then one day my husband was just talking to me, and he said, and he meant this as a joke, all right? Meant it as a joke. He said, "Wow, I want to buy you a beeper, babe." I'm like, "A beeper? what do I need a beeper for? It's like, so you can warn people when you back up.
Oh no.
But no, but here's the thing. A lot of people are like, that's mean, that's cruel. But we can't change what we're not aware of. I wasn't aware that I allowed myself to get to that place. And that was my wake up call. And that's when it kind of started.
I would be have been divorced. She would have divorced me twice just to make sure I understood that we were divorced if I said that.
I'm a little bit more thick skinned. Takes a lot to bring me down.
And so what was the plan at that point? Did you join a gym? Did you find a nutritionist? Did you look for a diet? Did you just try to do your own thing?
I started working out at Bally's, found a personal trainer. First, I was kind of doing things on my own. I just did lots and lots of cardio. That's what I started off with.
Yeah.
Nutritionally, I found something that my husband was doing, which I later learned that was really bad, and just tweaked it so that it fit more of my portion sizes, I suppose, at the time. So I did lose everything, but I was a skinny fat person.
The skinny fat, and people are confused what that means. Could you help us understand what that means?
I can show you a picture of what that means. I wanted to be able to share my screen with you. I don't know how
Uh-huh.
to do that, so I guess I can't. But oh, come on, because she's probably my best example in the world. Okay, so this is Nicole. She's a doctor of physical therapy, and she did keto and she did lots and lots of cardio. Thought she was doing everything right. Okay, and then she saw this picture of herself, and mind you, I think she looks fine. Okay. She wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Okay. So she saw this picture and she's like, dude, I am working out. I'm eating right. So what the heck? So this is what we would call skinny fat. So when we did her body fat, even though she looks lean here, she's carrying more body fat than she is muscle fat. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So she's thin, but she's carrying a lot of weight. This is what she looked like a year later. Okay. After we started feeding her in real food. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So that's, she's thin, but she's not, skinny fat. That's nice muscle tone.
And then sometimes when people make that kind of transformation, is it that they oftentimes weigh about the same? They're just shifting the weight from they have because the muscle weighs more now. They have more muscle and they have less fat. So sometimes the weight's about the same.
Muscle and fat weigh the same. All right.
Hmm.
So I am so glad I got my office back today. This is a 5 pounds of muscle. Ugh! And that's 5 pounds of fat. Okay, so they weigh the exact same, but what you can see is it's bumpy, lumpy, grumpy, and gross, and takes
Uh-huh.
up a lot of room. Whereas this right here, it's a lot more compact. Okay, so it's not taking up more space. This is a little bit more metabolic than fat, but what science has shown is this is really very metabolic actually. Fat cells pump out all kinds of pro-inflammatory cytokines. So typically when someone's overweight, they tend to be more inflamed inside as well. And we actually have a higher metabolism because you can see here what's represented. See these little dots here, the red dots, Hal?
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's representative of blood vessels. Okay, so what the body has to do in order to make sure it feeds it, it creates new blood cells. But I mean blood vessels too, right? Because it's
Yeah.
got to run the fat. So people actually who are a little bit overweight and obese, they actually tend to have a higher resting metabolic rate because they have more to power and take care of.
So if you were to give someone advice, and for thinking about a typical teacher, where they're scrambling for get to school in the morning, and they've got their own kids, and it's so stressful, and more than ever right now, teaching, it's so different than just even a year ago. I mean, it's so much more stressful, and just the energy that required and the time commitment. And for those teachers that are trying to get to shift their lifestyle to make themselves a priority, where where would you recommend they start?
Making a small change. Honestly, the things that the teachers are having to go through with right now from the beginning of the school year up until this point in our school district, one of the school districts, it seems to every week change what they're going to do. And it seems like the teachers are the last to know. Like they'll send out this message through the news, or the students will know, and the teachers are like, we're doing what? So these teachers are just being pounded with change and change and change and change. Now here comes the new year and they want to start doing something good for themselves, but they feel like, because most of the teachers I know are type A's, right? It's, I've got to do this, and this. And if something falls off of that, then my whole day is just crumpled, especially when you spend all that time putting lesson plans together. Well, trying to do that virtually when you're having the computer crash or a kid turns off his his video, and he's supposed to be on video. The good thing about Zoom, I have to say, is that my daughters, they're both, I have twin girls, they're 14, getting ready to. They've said that a couple of their teachers, if someone just keeps acting up or writing bad things in the Zoom room, they'll screenshot it and they'll kick the kid out of the Zoom room and then send it to the parents.
There you
So
go.
discipline seems to be a little bit better. But what I'm trying to say is because there's so many grand changes going on, then what you should focus on is one small thing that you can change that will bring you some peace of mind first and foremost. So focus on that one thing first. So let's say you know that I'm going to be hungry in the morning, but I know I have to try to get my kids set up at their computers. I've got to log on at this time with my computer. I've got to do this, this, and this. The meal prep is going to be huge for you. Making sure that you prep your meals on a Saturday or a Sunday. So that way in the morning, you're just grabbing something out of the fridge and eating it while you're getting everything else ready. So one small start of something.
I love that whole concept because a lot of times I feel like when there are so many big things happening and big events and big changes and big emotions happening in our lives, we think we need to make a big change.
Right.
When I then rarely, now that I'm thinking about my own personal life, has that been successful. But I think you're right. When those big things are happening, if we can make one small change and be consistent with that, then I think that leads to a lot of successes because it's just like our kids, man. Especially, with my challenging kids, I'm just trying to get a small win. Just give me one small win with a kid, and then I'll build
Right.
on that. Then we're gonna get another win. I'm not trying to, shift a kid who's been historically, academically failing every year that we're going to shift this kid and turn him around in one day. I'm just looking at a one win that day. Just give me something small. And I think it's the same thing with with ourselves. If we can get one little change and be successful and be consistent, and then we can build upon that moving forward. That seems to be the way it
Yes,
works.
absolutely. I mean, just especially during these trying times, I think that teachers are taking on just so much. And, but they also need to realize, and I understand the deep need to want to help kids. I really do understand that. That's why I got into teaching. And in a lot of ways, I'm still a teacher, right? I'm a personal trainer, right? So I teach premenopausal, perimenopausal, menopausal women how to physically move and take care of themselves. And I'm a nutritionist. So teaching people how to feed their bodies properly. So I'm still teaching, I just do it on a different platform, right? But in the end, it has to come down to self care, right? Because if you don't take care of you first, like if I have a horrible week, horrible day, everything's crashing, I go out into my gym, my client, they're going to feel that and they're going to know. And I might not treat that client the way they need to be treated. I might get snappy with somebody through an email because you can hear people on an email.
Yeah.
People don't believe that, but you can hear them, right? So if I'm not taking care of my mental, spiritual, physical well-being, then everything around me is going to be affected.
Hey, can we talk for a second about the challenge of resolutions? And I think I mean, I don't know if sure there's a population quite like teachers where we're in this profession. We have there's so many people with the personality of a perfectionist where it has to be right, which is great a lot of times for the classroom. However, when it comes to making changes in our lives, we take on this big resolution because we want a big change, and then within a few days we feel like we haven't been successful with that resolution, and then the whole thing falls apart. And I think there's something in the teacher DNA that it's almost setting them up for failure sometimes when it comes to that style of a resolution.
Well, I also think resolutions in and of themselves are setting you up for fail. Why do I say that? Because a resolution to me sounds like you're trying to change something that's flawed in you. I've done this wrong all year, so I resolve not to do that wrong thing. Right. So once we've already put ourselves in a negative mindset to say something negative about ourselves, well, it's going to be hard to kind of stick to that resolution because we've already told ourselves it's already in our subconscious. Our subconscious runs 90% of everything that we do. And we just don't realize it. That's why change is so difficult, right? Because we're always fighting against what comes natural to us, which is our subconscious. So once we put it out there, well, I resolve not to eat sweets ever again. Well, now you've just said sweets are really bad. You're saying you have no control. You said all these just negative things about yourself, right? So I think it's better for everyone, not just teachers, but for everyone to say, here are my intentions. This is what I intend to do positively moving forward. How am I going to better my life? Not looking at the negative thing, but what can I do to take control of my life to make something better? And even if that's, I'm just going to go to bed 5 minutes earlier and listen to Calm. If that's, I'm going to wake up 5 minutes earlier so I'm not feeling harried in the morning. What can I do to make my life better as to what terrible thing have I done that I need to change, and I resolve to change it? Make sense?
Yeah. One thing I was wondering with that I don't understand, I was hoping you could educate me on, is I do know because of the stress level of teaching, and there's just in the anxiety, and you're right, the changes, constant changes. What you're right, we have a plan and we know exactly what we're doing, and then I'm watching the news and I find out apparently we're not doing that. We're doing something else,
Yeah,
and
isn't that awful?
yeah, and then you think it's bad for teachers. It's worse for superintendents. The same thing happens to them. They send out a memo and here's the plan, and
Oh.
they get a word from the state that that's not what we're doing. But could you explain the role of stress and anxiety and cortisol and what that does as that moves through the body?
Essentially, you're just putting yourself in what's called a fight or flight state consistently if you're always on edge and you're always stressed out. So the body pumps out these hormones, right, that are going to try to get you actually to eat because we're in that flight or flight state that was created so that back when our ancestors a long, long time ago had to run from whatever it was, they would have the energy to do so. Okay. But the problem is we don't need that energy. So that fight or flight is, hey, you need to eat something that's sweet. You need to eat something that's with a lot of fat in it because you're going to need that energy to run away from the Mack truck that's chasing you down the highway, right? That's not going to happen. Unfortunately, what we're doing is we're sitting, and
Yeah.
then we're in always this stress level. So what happens though at the same time? We're still craving fat, we're still craving sugar, processed foods. So what do? To try to relieve that stress, to feed our brain or feed our body to run from whatever it is or what energy we need to get away from it, we start noshing on those things. What they're also showing now, the science, especially with sleep, is that the lack of sleep is going to really increase your body's propensity to store fat as well. And that has something to do with the gut microbiome. So I'm still reading more about that.
Yeah.
But the information about the gut microbiome, how much it actually runs our whole health. So what you feed the gut microbiome, what we literally are what we eat, right? So if you're eating all these bad foods, you're feeding your gut microbiome, then you're going to cause more inflammation, which inflammation can also be triggered by stress. So you're just pounding your body over and over again and putting you in a state that's almost impossible to lose weight
Right.
or lose body fat because your body just wants to store it.
Not only we eat, but we are what we digest, because a lot of times the gut is so messed up and so unbalanced that just getting the nutrients into the body through
Right.
an
Yeah. I
through a
get that with
unhealthy
my
gut.
gastric bypass clients who haven't had any follow up.
Hmm.
I mean, you got this little T stomach and it can't absorb nutrients the way it wants to, depending on how you got the gastric bypass. So we're just like, geez, man. So we just tell them you need to take this vitamin nutrient blend, blah, 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 so that it can absorb into your gut, things like that. And then the foods, of course, they don't have the nutrients that they once had in them. So I always recommend a multivitamin. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, you're right. We're feeding our bad gut microbiome because we're eating the foods that relieve our stress. Okay, because we're always in this stress state, which is high fat, high sugar. That helps relieve that mentally for us. And it's also destroying our gut microbiome, which
Yeah.
causes more inflammation and more fat storage and more frustration.
Hey, on the topic of sugar, I've seen those. I think we've all seen those studies where it talks about the addictive qualities in the neurology that happens when they eat sugar and how the brain lights up.
Hmm.
And with your clients, have you seen that on where like there really is an actual physical psychological addiction?
Well, with lean body coaching, we kind of come at it from a perspective that you really aren't addicted to food. What we find, the people who really crave sugar, and this is not to refute the science because it is there. And in fact, food industries use that science to create their foods. I'll come back to that. But what we have found that most of the people who do crave carbohydrates. They're either doing something that's extremely low carb, or they're non-food carriers, non-food preparers, and they're just not eating enough meals for the day. I have clients now that I'm feeding them certain portions, and they're like, oh my God, I'm not craving anything at all. I'm like, that's awesome, because
Yeah.
you're eating these 5 small meals a day and they're balanced with a protein and a complex carbohydrate, your portion of fat that you need. So when you give the brain what it needs, a lot of people make the mistake that the brain runs off of fat. It runs off of glucose. Okay. So if you don't give the brain glucose, it's going to look for it, or you're going to start to crave it. Okay. This is not to say the brain cannot run off of ketones. It can, but its preferred fuel source is carbohydrate. Okay. The Hungry Brain, that's a very good book for everybody to read. Okay. Dr. Laura Pasternak, something along those lines.
I was wondering, with your clients that have been successful, and you say, like, they feel better, the aesthetics of their physique has shifted into the what they were hoping for and looking for, and they're sleeping better and improve self-confidence, all those things. What are some of the ingredients in that recipe that they share? Is it just sheer willpower or discipline, or what is it?
Consistency.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, how I can have you eat Twinkies, 1,000 calories a day, right? And you'll lose weight. Alrighty. But whatever you do to lose the weight, you have to be able to continue doing that consistently to keep it off long term. So what my clients look for is something that they can do consistently. And I'm going to actually show you. I really wish I could share my screen because it'd be so much easier to do. But Shelly, she came to me. She'd been put on, she was in the military.
Uh-huh.
And so she has to weigh a certain amount to remain in the military. And she's actually kind of local. So she's in Newport News. I'm in Chesapeake. And she was looking for a personal trainer, actually. So I told her I didn't have any spaces. She kind of creeped on my page and saw that I did lean body coaching. So she was with a weight loss doctor who had her taking fat burners, and it wasn't working. He had her on a restrictive diet. She yo-yoed back and forth, and lost weight, gain, like, no. So when she came to me, she said, I am not doing this. She just gave me this list of the things that she would not do. I'm like, okay, that's fine. What one thing do you feel at this time can you change? So it's going back to what we were saying at the very beginning. What one small thing can you do for your health? She said, well, I can do this. I'm like, awesome. Let's start there. And from there, a month later, she's like, wow, I actually lost some weight. I'm ready to try to do this. Great. So these were all these little changes that she was making that were sustainable to her lifestyle and what she was able to do. And in the end, her end goal literally was to get through the holidays without putting on 20 pounds, because it happened every single year and she was sick of that cycle. So that's her at the very top when she started
Mhm.
with me. Sorry, it looks so cruddy. And then this is her at the bottom. So it's not this big, huge change. Okay. It's what, 12 pounds down. But this is right before the holidays. And I told
Yep.
her, because when we get to a certain point, and she's like, well, yeah, I kind of stagnated. I'll say to my client, well, I can do this. Let's go ahead and let's tweak your program. She's like, no, I'm good. I can sustain what I'm doing right now. And Elizabeth, I got through the holidays. I only gained 5 pounds, but I'm ready to jump right back on board with what I was doing. So she's going back down again. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Good for her. Hey, if we have a teacher and they said, okay, I'm willing to take a look at a breakfast. Okay, I want to start there. Let me start with a good breakfast, and I'm going to start there. I'm going to commit to that for the next couple of weeks. That's my big one first step I'm going to be consistent with. Well, what would you recommend?
Yeah, see, this is why some of my clients get mad at me, because they're like, just tell me what to eat. I'm like,
Right.
well, what I like to eat is going to be what you like to eat. So I don't know. But definitely you're looking for protein and a starch. Okay. And you want to do like a complex carbohydrate, something that's going to digest very slowly. So it's going to give you this slow energy release to last you over 2.5, 3 hours of having to sit there and try to control the kids on the computer.
Right.
God bless you guys for doing that. So that's where I would start. And a healthy fat portion would be a good thing. Like for me in the morning, I have the time. So I make this big, huge vegetable omelet. I have a bowl of oatmeal. I put in, my portion of berries. I throw in some, 5 walnuts. I crunch them up, and that's my breakfast. But sometimes I'll do a pancake. And the pancake, again, it's just 8 whites and oatmeal. Same thing, same portion sizes. I just make it into a pancake form. I have a lot of clients who make breakfast burritos. So they don't really care for eggs, or have some clients that can't eat eggs. They'll take ground turkey breast or chicken breast and shred it, and they'll put it with taco seasoning mix, and they'll make themselves a breakfast burrito with some
Yeah.
veggies and whatever. So some make frittatas and eat a couple slices of Dave's Killer Bread. So it just kind of depends, but they're keeping it balanced, protein and a carb.
Right. But you're saying not Fruit Loops.
No, no Fruit Loops. What you in general, when you're looking at sugar, added sugar. Okay, the American Heart Association right now, for women, is recommending about 24 grams for the entire day. Right. My boss Keith Klein, he considers a low sugar diet 40 grams, and that's pretty low as well. But if you want to go with the American Heart Association, then for women it's 24. I have some women that are good with that, some aren't. So they like that we give them this window from 24 to hi. There's hello from Georgia. That's neat.
Yeah.
So they like that they have that uh, what do you, I guess, cushion between
Yeah.
24 grams and the 40.
Yeah. Hey, can you talk for a second about your work with Keith Klein and lean body coaching? Because that is one of the coolest things I've come across.
Thank you. Well, one thing, how have you seen the documentary yet?
I haven't. I've seen clips.
Shame on you.
I know.
It's free, dude, on Amazon.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be in that, but I couldn't get to Houston. So, yeah, watch Beyond Diet Breaking, no, break, yeah, Beyond the Diet Breaking the Fat Loss Code. It's free on Amazon, and it features Keith on there, and he gives some really good background of what we do in lean body coaching. So we're not a low carb plan. We're not low fat. We're not low protein. We're not anything nuts. We really focus on sustainability of weight loss. I mean, we want you to lose the weight, and that's going to happen, right? But it's
Yeah.
going at your pace, one. So what you get put into the program, that's what you're going to get back. I mean, I have some clients, they write me every day. They do what they need to do. They upload their photos, they upload their measurements every single month like they're supposed to, so I can kind of keep tabs on them and see what we need to tweak and what we don't. Some don't write me at all. Some I just see in our Facebook group, because we have a private Facebook group for them as well. But I really think what sets our program apart and sets Keith apart is the psychology of eating management. Now, I know there are a lot of programs coming out now that are we this work with the brain and get you to change behavioral change. Keith's been doing that since the early 80s. That's what his body of work is on. And that's what we've brought to lean body coaching. So we teach you how to eat to get lean. But the biggest part of this program is how to keep you from going into a full blown relapse, or going into a lapse, or a lapse that you just can't get out of for a couple of days or what have you. So just teaching you some methods of how to prevent that. And it's really important, especially when you're stressed out and you're a stress eater. Then what do? Right? I have some clients that they say, well, I eat that makes me happy. I'm like, well, the food doesn't love you. How's the food making you happy? You're the one that ascribed that trait to that food, right? Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
it's having them reframe how they approach food, see food, see the habits that they've created for themselves, because we can create bad habits just like we create good habits. So a lot of times when someone says that I'm a stress eater, I'm an eater because I'm bored, I'm this, that, and that. It's because they've created a habit. So we try to find those habits and change them, replace them.
There's so much psychology that goes into this. I think sometimes people think it's just chemistry, body chemistry, and foods, but there's this the psychology behind a successful program is just huge.
Yeah. I mean, I think that really is the key to our success, honestly, because let's go back to the science of the sugar triggering the brain. That is true. All right. There is a book out there called Sugar, Salt, and Fat. and I can't remember who the author is, but I suggest everyone eat that. Read it. Don't eat it, read it. Because what it talks about is how food scientists at certain companies, at well, most food companies, what they do is they're looking for a bliss point. So how much sugar can I load into this food that will trigger your brain to want it again,
Yeah.
and a mouthfeel. So the fat, how much fat can I put in this so it feels so great on your tongue and in your belly that you're going to want to come back for it more and more. Just like Oreos, they did a huge study on Oreos. The cream of the Oreos, I mean, it's addictive,
Yeah.
right? And they created it in that way. However, right? Food is a little bit different than a traditional addiction because you need food, right? You don't
Yeah.
need heroin. You don't need alcohol. You need food to survive. So, in those particular cases where you do have the stronger allure of wanting to eat this thing because that food industry created that monster to make you want that, this is where the psychology comes in to change that habit that you've created of reaching for the Oreos. Well, what can I do to replace that that's going to help me? That small change, right? So, I wouldn't even tell you, hey, if you eat Oreos every single night, like a whole pack, right? And you're like, well, I'm not giving up my Oreos. I'm like, well, okay, that's fine. Let's make a better bad choice. Can you maybe instead of doing them 7 days a week, can you do it 3 days a week? And some people are like, yeah, sure, right?
Right.
Guess what? That one behavioral change, that one little habit, they will see change. It'll be small, but they'll see it and they'll get happy, like, wow, I got to eat all my Oreos. Well, what happens if I do this? And well, what happens if I do that? And they get so excited, they're making the change on their own, which
Right.
is
I
kind
think
of cool to see.
just like with kids, like once they own it and once they feel that they're, feel some ownership with that change that they created. I mean, now we can create some magical moments.
Absolutely. And you have to empower people. Really, that's what it is. That's why when people say, hey, I just want you to tell me what to eat and blah, 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 I'm like, well, I can't do that. That's not empowering. I'm basically going to tell you what I eat and just eat what I eat. I'm not
Right.
going to do anything for you. I can't tell you, hey, I need you to stop drinking. Because once I say, hey, don't ever have a drink again, you're going to be like, forget you, Coach Elizabeth. Either you're going to go out and binge or you're going to be good for 2 weeks and then you'll binge after that 2 weeks, right? If I tell my twins to do X, then I'm like, whatever, yeah. But then what's funny, a week later, I'm like, hey, mom, I did this. And I'm like, I just told you that last week.
Right.
But now they've owned it. Oh, I came up with that idea. So,
Right.
that type of thing.
Hey, for folks that want some more information and maybe if there's a way to connect with you, is there how should they do that? Should that be on Facebook or on your website or what's the best way?
They can message me for sure. I take messages. My email is, what is my email? Coach Elizabeth LBC at gmail.com. But I really strongly encourage everybody to see our documentary to get a little to know Keith a little bit. You know Keith. I mean, he's just a wonderful person, very intelligent, very giving, kind. He's definitely helped me a lot um, become a better person, believe it or not, and a more calm person. I respond versus react, which is something that we teach people. There is a difference. Okay. Even with your kids, I know, right? I taught some pretty tough kids, love them to death. Only lasted 2 years in the school system. All right. So I know it's a tough job, but man, your first reaction with some of them is like, "Pah!" I just say, look, I slapped him so hard, my headpiece out. But you can't do that. You have to take a deep breath and you have to respond, right? So that's something that we really work on in the program as well. So Keith has done a lot of that for me. The other thing you can do, you can sign up for a call as well at leanbodycoaching.com. And you can, I think there might be a way to request me if you would like to do that. If not, then just send, if you can't find something on there where you can actually request to speak to me specifically, I think we do have a place that you can email info at Lean Body Coaching, and then Simon will hook you up. You know Simon.
I do.
Yeah. He'll hook you up and send you to me.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We so appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great night.
You as well, Health. Appreciate it.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.